Forge, Forge, wherever you may be. We are the famous Forge FC, and we don't give a shit if you're York or Calgary, 'cause we are the champions, Forge FC. 2 years, 2 microwave plates. Hamilton Forge are once again the champions of the Canadian Premier League and have won a second straight North Star Shield. Okay, I just want to preface things by saying the island games for the CPL ended up working very, very, very well. I think they worked so much better than anyone was expecting. Not a single positive COVID test the entire tournament. No, at least that we know of, player complaints about the state of the bubble. The virtual stadium, yes, had some bugs. When the ball was in the air, it was hard to see, and it would be faded into the CGI stadium, but the CGI stadium actually looked very well and probably looked a lot better than it would have been if the CGI stadium wasn't there. And just overall, everything just ran so smoothly. And there were a couple hiccups at the beginning. The TV quality didn't look that great. The CGI stadium was a little rough to start off, but as the tournament went on, they just improved all the technical aspects and all the visual aspects of the thing, and it just ended up being a fantastically well done, well executed tournament. So props to the CPL and One Soccer for putting together a fantastic island games, a fantastic quarantine cup, and just a fantastic 2020 abbreviated season. That being said, what a tournament. Akeem Garcia winning the Golden Boot and just absolutely coming out as an elite striker in the CPL. Atletico Ottawa not being completely demolished and actually being in the running for a Final Four spot until the last match day. Marco Bustos putting up a hell of a tournament for Pacific FC, and the Forge just continuing to be the Forge and winning another Canadian Premier League championship. Looking at every team, FC Edmonton, disappointing, only got 1 point, and that was off of Atletico Ottawa. For them, this was just a disaster of a tournament. It's just been a terrible year all around for FC Edmonton, and it was really unfortunate that they weren't able to pick it up a notch and become a contender in this year's Island Games, especially being the most storied club in the Canadian Premier League. So for FC Edmonton, you know, for next year, after this disastrous outing, they're definitely going to do some serious moves to improve the squad. They have to. Atletico Ottawa, complete opposite, came in with no expectations and were in the running until the last match of the first round, the last match day of the first round. Ended up finishing 7th, but for a new expansion side who didn't even have a full roster until about a week before the Island Games started, was just such a great story. It was such a great performance all around for them, and honestly, Atletico Ottawa has a great foundation for them to build off of going into future years. They have potential to transform into a force in this league moving forward. Winnipeg Valor, it was always going to be a tough season for them after losing Bustos and some other key pieces. Julian Dunn was absolutely fantastic for them, a great loan pickup, probably the best loan pickup in the CPL this season. He's hopefully going to turn this into possibly playing for TFC next year, at least I hope so, being a TFC fan. We really need a center back, and he just has quite a bit of potential in that spot. Winnipeg, again, like Ottawa, in the running till the last match day, just wasn't able to squeak on in to the Final Four. So that will be a bit of a disappointment for them, but they were in the running and they did show that they can be a contender in the CPL right now. York 9 was one of the favorites coming into this tournament. I had them in my top 3 with Forge and Calgary, and they just completely fell apart. They never really got anything going. They never got any chemistry put together, really, and ended up finishing 5th, just missing out on the Final Four in the final group stage. And really, this was a disappointing effort for York 9 because in the offseason, like, they were the clear winners of the offseason. They were the team that everyone thought had made the most improvements going from last season to this season. And just the fact that they took all that and then actually fell down to 5th from being 3rd at the end of last year is quite a large disappointment. I guess you can chalk it up to it being a short season, them just not really having time to get the chemistry together, to get the knowledge of everyone's play styles together, to be able to put everything together and just kind of play the game they wanted to play. But that's what happens in these short tournaments, these shortened seasons. So for York 9, disappointing season, but there obviously is the pieces there for it to be a lot better moving forward. Pacific FC, what a campaign from Marco Bustos. Honestly, I think he should get the MVP. He was just so good. Probably the best player in this tournament, in my opinion. And without him, they definitely don't make the Final Four. Taron Campbell was a disappointment, not scoring until their last game when they were already knocked out of the final group stage. But they've learned that they have a key centerpiece in Marco Bustos, and they just need to fill in a couple slots around him, and they can seriously be a contender in the CPL if they can keep Bustos. He's just so good this season, and if he can continue this on the next year, then he really has the potential to become like the next Tristan Borges of a Canadian player who just dominates the CPL after it looked like his chances were running out. Calgary. In short tournaments like these, there usually is a team or two that just get demolished by injuries. And this season, Calgary had the unfortunate circumstance of being that team. So many injuries, particularly up front. Their ability to score was just taken away from them. They finished the tournament only having 7 subs on the bench of a possible 12. They just were completely beaten down, injured, never really had a shot at fielding a fully healthy lineup. And if Calgary was able to put out a fully healthy lineup in that group stage in the Final Four, they probably would have been in the finals, and they probably might have won. But just the way the injuries shaked out, it wasn't Calgary's year. It's a shame that Calgary now has 2 regular season titles in the CPL. Well, actually 3 if you count the spring and fall season last year. And doesn't have a North Star shield to show for it. They're always the best until it gets to the knockouts. But this time it was because of something far beyond their control. The injuries in the short tournament just, for some reason, only bit them and didn't really bite anyone else. And Calgary just wasn't able to recover from that. Halifax Wanderers, what a tournament for them. Coming in, I didn't even think they were going to make the Final Four. They made it all the way to the finals. Akeem Garcia winning the Golden Boot, scoring 6 times in 9 games. What an absolutely fantastic tournament for him. Auctioner was great up until the last 2 minutes when he led in that Tissot goal at the final. But for Halifax, just what an improvement. They were not very good at all last season, and this season they just fielded a much far improved squad. And the pieces that really brought it together, though, were younger players from the squad last year who just improved and made themselves better players and had better seasons. So Halifax, this was a fantastic campaign for them all the way to the finals. I don't think anyone had them in the finals at the beginning of this tournament. Just a fantastic run for them, and it's something that they should be proud of. And finally, Hamilton Forge, champions once again. It looked a little shaky at points, and we were very obviously missing the creative talent of Tristan Borges. We just didn't have a guy who was just that big of a game breaker, but the team pulled together. It was a score-by-committee effort. No real 1 or 2 guys who put up all the goals. This was a full team effort for the Hamilton Forge. Kyle Becker, again, for a second straight season, an MVP finalist. He is just absolutely fantastic for the Forge, fantastic in the CPL. Apparently the Vancouver Whitecaps are looking at him and thinking about picking him up. That would be a huge move for him. And this Forge team, which went into this season with a lineup that was largely similar to the one that they had last season, really just proved that they have the working formula, and if they just keep this core group of players together, which might be difficult now if they keep winning and some of these players might move on to bigger things, but they've shown that the system that they have is working, and the system that they have is the model for what to be in the Canadian Premier League. And I can't not talk about the guy who is a topic of contention for so many CPL fans this season, Mo Babouli. When it was announced that he was signing for the Forge, we had half of Twitter saying he was going to be the best striker in the CPL, half of Twitter saying he was going to be garbage and that he was nothing and couldn't play in the CPL. I mean, he hadn't played full 11v11 soccer in an actual competitive league in over a year, having played indoor soccer with the Metro Stars and then playing in the Canadian Soccer League last summer. So no one really knew what he was going to be. He was just kind of reaching your hand into a hat and seeing what you pull out. And Babouli, honestly, it took a while, but he ended up starting the CPL finals, scoring a beautiful goal in the last game of the group stage to put Hamilton in the finals, and then starting the finals, getting an assist on the Accioni Janssen finals winning goal. Mo Babouli wasn't a dominant force, wasn't the best striker in this tournament by any means. He just kind of was a decent player, but he proved that he fits in perfectly with this league, and for him, that's something that he really needs, is a league that he can actually settle down and get some consistent year in, year out minutes in, because he's never had that at all in his career. And I think it's time for some normalcy and for some routine in his career. So there you have it. That is my recap of the 2020 Canadian Premier League season, the Island Games. Such a fantastic tournament, ending up with Forge FC winning a second straight CPL title and a spot in the Canadian Championship final to face Toronto FC. Of course, the first time we're going to get Toronto versus Hamilton is behind closed doors. I would have loved to be at that game, but unfortunately, I guess that's just not going to happen. Well, I mean, first we're going to figure out when the Canadian Championship final is going to happen. It's going to be really weird to see when that occurs. But if the CONCACAF League happens, Hamilton will have some games sprinkled in between now and December, January when they end up playing TFC. Hopefully they get some games between there because they're going to need them, because you can't go in against TFC after not playing for 4 months. So the entire CPL will be watching to see what Hamilton can do against TFC in the Canadian Championship final, and that should be a doozy. So that does it for this video. As always, if you'd like to hit like, if you'll see more of my stuff, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Link is down below in the description, and I will see you next time.